Welcome to the Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the news from the global economy. Today's magazine. The U.S. and Mexico tighten borders against Central American influx. And Costa Rica positions itself as the region's new high-tech hub. First, the headlines. German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President François Hollande increased pressure on Russia to resolve the Ukrainian crisis. Merkel and Hollande held a 2-hour phone call with the Russian and Ukrainian presidents on Sunday and plan to hold another talk on Monday. The EU leaders urged them to extend the ceasefire and implement a peace plan presented by the Ukrainian authorities. Russian President Vladimir Putin faces further restrictive measures by the EU unless he reins in separatist rebels by Monday. The Bank for International Settlements warned of a potential post-crisis crash if governments globally continue to sustain policies that nurture asset booms. BIS in its annual report called on central banks to halt the steady rise in debt burdens and embark on reforms to boost productivity. Leading central banks should not fall into the trap of raising rates too slowly and too late, the Bank for Central Banks said. BIS also warned of the risks brewing in emerging markets, noting banking crises in a number of jurisdictions, most notably China. Edmond de Rothschild is targeting $530 million towards its first private equity fund focusing on deals in Africa. Amethyst, a company majority owned by the Swiss private banking group, will manage the fund and has so far invested in 5 companies, including Kenya-based Chase Bank. Rothschild is tapping into yield-hunting investors warming up to Africa's steady economic growth and emerging middle class. Private equity funds targeting the continent attracted $2.4 billion last year, nearly double the amount collected the previous year. Extremist jihadi group IS that seized territory in Iraq and Syria formally declared the establishment of a caliphate. The inflammatory declaration came as Iraqi government forces counterattacked the Sunni Islamic group to alter the balance of power. The US, Russia, and Iran are backing Iraqi security against IS, formerly known as the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. Oil prices eased in Asia on Monday on softer US demand, but prices remain high for the foreseeable future as fighting between Shias and Sunnis in Iraq carries on. President Bill Clinton and philanthropist Frank Giostra announced the launch of a supply chain enterprise in Haiti to boost local peanut production. The Excesso Peanut Enterprise Corporation will improve the livelihoods of more than 12,000 smallholder peanut farmers. The enterprise partnership will facilitate the delivery of quality inputs and training to farmers, as well as the collection and safe storage of peanuts. The Clinton Foundation deployed resources to Haiti following the 2010 earthquake and focuses now on private sector investment, job creation, capacity building, and economic development.
If children do not have the right strength in their bodies, if they get sick, you can give them medicine and the medicine won't work. It won't stay in their bodies. So peanuts are, in a way, kind of a miracle food for people all over the world. And in Haiti, we think there could be tens of thousands of farmers and farm families sending their kids to school for the first time, taking care of their families, and meeting the health care as well as the nutritional needs of their country.
NGOs estimate that some 100,000 Hondurans annually travel illegally to the United States by way of Mexico, risking theft, drug cartels, human trafficking, and murder. Though 33,500 Honduran citizens have already been deported during the first half of this year, they continue to flee Honduras, which has the highest homicide rate in the world. Daniel Ross has more in this report.
It's commonplace for Central American migrants to head up through Mexico toward the United States in search of work with more fair conditions. But the search for a better life is often dangerous and expensive.
We are charging the migrants $7,000 or $6,000. This business generates a lot of money, especially when we are helping children to cross here.
The number of young people crossing is growing amid the ever-expanding gang violence in their places of origin. The United States Department of Homeland Security reported that between last October and May of this year, more than 47,000 minors crossed into the U.S., mostly from Central America. It's almost twice as many as in the year before. And now the U.S. is deporting migrants en masse. The latest, at the end of last week, a steady flow of buses dropped off 155 minors and 99 adults en route back to their places of origin in Honduras. According to the Honduran Family Institute, 1,643 minors have been deported to the drop-off point in San Pedro Sula, Honduras, in June, and 5,000 since January.
There, in the U.S. Customs Detention Center, they treat you like a dog. They put you in a cooler and let you suffer the cold. Some migrants are kept in a cold room with air conditioning. They give you one tortilla with rice, a bottle of water, nothing more. They give you this for 7 or 8 days. They have you punished there.
Nearly 75,000 were deported from the U.S. and Mexico last year, and nearly 35,000 have been deported so far this year as governments invest tens of millions of dollars to build up security and reintegration programs in Central America. Their intention is to stop the flow of people heading north who arrive both for economic reasons and to escape violence.
Most people say that it is because of unemployment that they choose to migrate, but violence as a reason to leave Honduras has increased. The country's insecurity and unemployment both make people want to find a new source of work or a better income for their families.
It's not hard to see why people from Honduras are looking north. Approximately 70% of people in Honduras live in poverty. According to the UN, nearly 30,000 people have been internally displaced due to ongoing violence in Honduras, which boasts the world's highest murder rate, more than 85 people per 100,000.
We're now joined by I-24 News editor Ruth Sinai for a discussion on the Central American influx into Mexico and the United States. Ruth, thank you very much for joining us. So is this a new trend that you have all these minors coming in from Central America into Mexico and the United States?
It would seem so, yeah. The figures are pretty amazing. There's something like, since last October, which is less than a year, I mean, it's about 6 months, we've had 47,000 minors, being smuggled in across, either smuggling themselves in or being smuggled in by coyotes across the border. Many of them are not from Mexico, actually. Why? Because U.S. law says that if you're from a country that doesn't border the United States, they can't deport you immediately. You have to go through a process.
Interesting.
And so the thinking is, we'll be there in the United States anyway. This is also what the smugglers tell them, and they say, you're there anyway. By the time you get to the court and by the time this and that, you're there already. You'll find work. Maybe you'll kind of blend into the woodwork and out of the, out of sight of the border and immigration control. So that's one of the reasons. The reasons for so many of these minors are coming in from countries like Honduras, like Guatemala, like El Salvador, where poverty is really, really rampant, and so is violence. And parents are very complicit in this, basically helping their kids to get out, because they want them to have a better life,
future.
A better
Certainly,
life.
yeah, absolutely.
Now, a subgroup among these minors, among these 47,000 minors, are, of all places, Chinese. Yeah. Apparently, the Chinese have figured out that if they get visas to Guatemala and Honduras and all these countries that we've been talking about, from there, they can easily, hop, skip, and a jump, and they get
it's a springboard to
into the United States. Exactly. So you've got thousands and thousands. You can see apparently along the border, along with the English and Spanish language signs at the various border crossings, there's signs in Chinese, which indicates that it's a fair amount, number of people.
It's a serious number of people just being channeled in, so to speak.
Now, these stories are horrific, really horrific. Some of them, some of them are sold by parents. Some of them are just encouraged to go, as we said, for a better life. And they're smuggled in every conceivable way. I mean, the ingenuity is incredible. From a coffin, this one kid was found in a coffin, to a bathroom on a bus that's set out of order and inside.
It's basically modern day slavery in many ways.
Totally.
And once they actually get to the point where of delivery, so to speak, where they really want to be, presumably they end up in some sort of a sweatshop.
Absolutely. Or they're dispersed all over the United States to work in Chinese restaurants, basically in kitchens. Washing pots and pans and dishes.
The United States obviously is one of these places because of its sheer size where you can really just blend in and disappear.
Absolutely.
And no one will ever know. I mean, Are there actually numbers in terms of how many of these migrants there are? I guess it's really hard to really.
Well, it's hard since they
a
drop
sense of
off the
how many there
radar
are. Yeah,
screen,
sure.
and nobody really knows. There are some organizations that have started kind of, there's advocacy groups for everything in the United States, as you know, and so there are some organizations trying to get a handle on the numbers and see if they can help them in any way.
Right.
But all in all, it's a very sad story.
Okay, well, Rutsina, thank you very much for joining
Thank
us
you.
and for giving us some insight into that story. Costa Rica, at the middle of Central America, has established itself as the new high-tech hub of the region, but not everybody benefits from this new economic miracle. More in the following report by Daniel Roth.
The sun and colors of Costa Rica all say welcome to a unique country that is working to become the Silicon Valley of Latin America with its main asset, its strategic position at the center of the continent. Costa Rica eliminated customs duties and implemented tax exemptions in the 1990s, which were aimed at attracting foreign companies, and the country has signed on to 15 free trade agreements, including one with the United States.
And I'm here because Costa Rica is a great partner, not just regionally, but globally.
If U.S. companies are moving to the Central American state, it's because workers are equally as competent and 30% cheaper to pay there. And high technology is an area that the country has done well in. Exports rose from $1.6 billion in 1999 to nearly $6 billion in 2013. But many people don't get to take part in this profit, with unemployment standing still at 9% of the active population and around 20% of the population living in poverty, according to the Tica Times. President Luis Guillermo Solis, elected last April, has said that this is a priority, but with a deficit greater than 5%, the task may not be easy.
And now for a look at articles from around the world in Media Watch. And Daniel Roth joins us for Media Watch.
How's it going?
Good. So I understand you have something from D Magazine.
D Magazine, as in Dallas.
Dallas.
Not to be mistaken with Daniel.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Good.
This guy Matt Rutledge, who is now incredibly wealthy, was once not so much. He dropped out of college. He owed the city of St. Louis $8,000 in parking tickets, or traffic violations, and decided to move back to Texas afterwards to hide from these. He came up with an idea early on in the early days of the internet called Woot.com.
What?
Woot, which became a big site for nerds, where it was kind of a marketplace, but not exactly. You would go there, and every day a new item was sold, but only that item would be sold. So in the article, they explained that this could have been a robotic lawnmower or something like this.
Okay.
Or it could have been a wheel of cheese, they say. It depends. Every night at midnight Central Time, they would a new item would go for sale, and this became a huge hit.
Why?
So this is the question that Jeff Bezos was asking when he bought it for an enormous amount of money. Made Matt Rutledge incredibly wealty.
So he can pay off his debt to whatever.
So he can pay off his parking tickets and buy a house with a lake. But Jeff Bezos also wondered why, and the people at Amazon couldn't figure it out. And the idea here is that Woot was more entertainment and community than it was marketplace, and Amazon didn't quite get that. So they
had to buy it.
So they bought it. They tried to figure it out, and they a little bit dismantled it, and it's no longer the Woot that was the center of so many people's lives, that they would go and Woot, yeah. No, so now that Matt Rutledge is out of his contract with Amazon that came with the purchase, he's gone ahead and he's created something called Meh. The opposite of Woot. So basically, he's trying out this new thing, but really what Matt Rutledge represents is the X factor on the internet. It's not entertainment, it's not exactly media, but it's more entertainment and media and community than it is marketplace. But they're still selling something, you're still buying something. And at the end of the day, it's really about, it's the kind of charisma and character at the center of these items.
Okay, I can't hear about this anymore. I'm getting sick. Okay, what else do you have here?
We have in China, Bloomberg is reporting that in China, a worker, a long-time 26-year worker for a ministry, worked himself to death. which is something we've been hearing about bankers all over the world doing this. And it's happened, of course, China is home to many, many sweatshops, and people not only work themselves to death in labor jobs, but also try to kill themselves in some cases, as was the case in 2010 in Foxconn. But we're seeing here a story of more and more white-collar people. First of all, the white-collar realm being grown in China. And more people in these jobs literally working themselves to death, finding themselves working so hard that other health conditions come up to the fore. And it's really calling into question the labor practices across the board.
Oh gosh, we really have to get real here, right? Thanks, Daniel Roth. This takes us to the end of this edition. Thanks for watching. I'm Benjamin Chong-Faris. Please continue to watch us. Please continue to send us your feedback and join us again tomorrow.